So we're pretty much in the Bruce Willis farewell tour since he announced his retirement. And I think that just now brings even more attention to the projects that he's been doing. And here we are with another one that I wanted to check out. And this time we're going to be reviewing Corrective Measures. What's up, folks, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. And today we're going to be reviewing the film Corrective Measures, which is available now to stream for free on Tubi. Now, before his announcement, if you checked out some of my previous reviews with Bruce Willis, I've been saying, like, dude has been putting in work. Like, the pandemic slowed a lot of things down, but not for Bruce. He has appeared in over 15 films in the midst of the pandemic. And then when we heard about his announcements of his retirement due to health issues and whatnot, it sort of makes sense, but at the same time, you still respect him for all of the effort that he put in. And even if he had a very minimum role, or, you can even call it a cameo, he was still out there doing it. And the pandemic was rough, protocols and all those sorts of stuff. And you have somebody like Bruce Willis attached to films, not only is going to bring the notoriety to the film, but it more or less is definitely going to have folks check it out just on him alone. And whether you like the film or not, it's Bruce Willis. And yeah, you're going to check it out. And then you add the fact that he has announced his retirement. That brings even more attention. So here we are again with another film by him. And there's still more coming down the pipeline. Check the IMDb because I had to count how many films he were in. Like I said, over 15 films. And he still got about another 4 or 5 that's coming out soon. He's been working, so like he's going out on a high note, if you ask me, whether you like the films or not. Like the mass amount of productivity he's putting out there, it speaks for itself. In a legendary career, shall I add. But beyond that, beyond Bruce, there's some other names that I want to say was a huge draw to me. Michael Rooker, anything he's in, I'm absolutely checking out. I think he's fantastic. He also brings a certain presence to a film, but also a comedic tone that I always appreciate. His banter's so good. And then it was another name attached to his that is a duo that I never knew I wanted, but here we are. And this is the first film they've ever been in together. And that's Tom Cavanagh, who is fantastic. Huge fan of his work on The Flash, but overall, again, I think when you think about Michael, you kind of look across and say, like, well, he's kind of cut from the same cloth. And the two of them plus Bruce, and there's some other names attached to this as well too, I thought really was the high points of this film. And I'm gonna break it all down because there's parts about this film I like, parts that I did not like, parts that were just kind of what it was. But I just think for the talent unknown, the names attached to this was definitely worth it on that note. Because the stars do what the stars do. And, Bruce is in a very protective role because it's Bruce. You don't want him to do too much. I'm sure he addressed every project he signed on with health issues and concerns. So, they kept him protected. And he did what he was supposed to do. And that's just being a name and giving a minimum spotlight, almost a cameo, and then the rest of the film and the actors and everybody work around that. And that's what they kind of did in this. But in Corrective Measures, you have a Ubermax prison, aka a Supermax. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. Which basically houses monsters, cyborgs, supervillains, and they're controlled by a 24-hour shock collar, who's ran by Michael Rooker's character, Warden Devlin. And with that, he houses a particular villain, which is Bruce Willis' character, the Lobe. And at this point now, the Lobe has a lot of influence. So not only is he just like top notch in everything he does and notoriety and all that sorts of stuff, everybody respects him. He is the head guy. But the interest here is because he's also has a fortune that no one knows where it's at. But that doesn't stop Warden, because that's his whole goal, is he's trying to figure out where the goal is at. And that's like really like the biggest umbrella of things that's kind of going on amongst like tension within you know, from the different gangs and folks and whatnot. I mean, we're living in basically a meta-human world where everybody has powers, and because of that, some people are using it for good, some people are using it for bad, some people have no clue what they're doing. Circumstantial things have happened which has landed them in these jails. So all those sorts of different things are kind of happening in that as well. But more or less, you know, it's just from top to bottom, it's about Warden trying to find the Loeb's money in a very meticulous way, shall I say. Now, let's just be honest, because we're making comparison here. This prison that they're at, as they call it, a Ubermax, is a supermax, which is basically Bel Rev, which, if you know DC Comics, is where the Suicide Squad and all of them were kept. It's literally the same dynamics of stuff in there as well too. This film is certainly a direct-to-home video. Like, the production's solid, the CGI's kind of whatever, but the toning and everything, like, I don't feel like the film takes itself serious. I feel like everybody attached had a lot of fun, and I feel like this wasn't a film that they looked at and said, like, we're looking to make awards, we're looking to have a good time, to create some entertainment, something to kind of kick back. You can even almost call it a popcorn film. There's some sort of choreography in there, some in the beginning, some at the end. I think the final act really did deliver. I mean, when you're talking about metahumans in a sense, you want to see the powers on display, but you don't see them because everybody's being controlled by a shock collar. But you do see it in the beginning as we see one of the villains sort of land himself in jail, and we kind of see how he went about getting to that point. And then we kind of sort of follow his life in jail a little bit, but they kind of get away from that, and then we get introduced to so many other folks, like Tom's character, Gordon Tweedy, who is basically the conductor. So that means he's definitely dealing with something electric, right? Who also is sort of a mastermind in jail himself. He has respect for the Lobe, but he also has his own plans. So like I said, like, you know, it's very much on par what you would expect a film like this to be. I can even do you one better. It's sort of like an episode of The Flash, except it's 2 hours. And all the sort of dynamics, the toning, the banter, the wit, the comedy, it really follows as if this was like a CW, you know, Flash 2-hour special movie with just off-brand characters and names and whatnot. So like the fight choreography was on that level. Actually, there was a little bit of gore, but like the gore and the special effects on that note, and even the CGI was very like lackluster, nothing too impressive, you know. And beyond that too, I just think that like the scenes with the stars, Michael and Bruce have a good scene. Tom has many good scenes. You know, it's just that is what he was looking for, you know. So like, yeah, you know, it was longer than it needed to be. It was campy. Like I said, the production wasn't all that. And I just think it was an enjoyable time. I think if you love this genre of villains, and, you know, you can even say anti-heroes and whatnot, and even these prison guards who were supposed to like kind of be conducting order were also kind of getting in the midst of things and kind of taking things into their own hands. So like those type of moments, you were just like, yeah, that doesn't quite make sense. So like, if you go in there with the mindset of just wanting to enjoy it, you'll be fine. You know, don't expect a lot. Just a kickback of some notable names and a genre that you're very familiar with, and so on. And like I said, this is Bruce Willis' retirement tour, so like don't expect a lot from him as well too. He's very protected. I think he sat in most of his scenes, and then the scenes that he wasn't sitting, I'm sure it probably wasn't him. He took a nice blow from Michael's character, so you know, I'm pretty sure Bruce Willis ain't taking no bumps out here and whatnot. And then beyond that, because this is based in a villain jail, it's almost impossible to tell who actually is the true bad guy in everything, because everybody has their own sort of motivation, and sort of that kind of makes them bad. But like, it's hard to tell like who's truly like the villain, the antagonist and protagonist in it. It's just like a big mix of just one thing after another. Like I said, the prison guards were even getting in there, taking matters into their own hand, which was like personal vendettas, which were just like, how are you even employed here if you're going to do that? You know what I mean? And then the end twist, you know, I'm not mad at it. It left me one big question. We respect the Loeb. We respect him They make sure that you understand as the viewer that he is the top person in this jail. All the villains respect him and whatnot. But we never got to really see his abilities. So like throughout the entirety of the film, it's like, well, what is his powers? Everybody here is enhanced, but what is his? And I think like the twist at the end was like, finally. Okay. And like, let's just be honest, the villains and all the sorts of monsters and whatnot that we see, all of those powers and whatnot, enhanced abilities, are carbon copies of other properties that you've seen. So you got a person with electricity, a person who can multiply, all those sorts of things. So like, you didn't see anything trying to reinvent the wheel. They just used popular power traits and abilities and just put them on other folks and whatnot. And there's that. But yeah, you know, if it sounds like it interests you, check it out. The Collective Measures, again, it's free, so it doesn't do you any harm to check it out if you want to. It is 2 hours, so be prepared for that. And like I said, this is part of the Bruce Willis retirement tour. So, but yeah, jump in the comments, let me know your thoughts about this when you do. And as always, stay tuned for more reviews very soon.